Oh, here we are. All right.
All right, here we are. So, as you can see by my beverage, it's not the evening. As you can see by your beverage, it should be the evening.
Should be.
Who knows? I don't know what you drink. So yeah, the vulgar parts. We figured no one's going to fucking talk to us. So let's talk to each other ahead of our album release. And I got to say, like, my pits are a little bit sweaty, man, because I don't know what's coming my way in terms of questions. We kept things a secret from each other, and we just thought, let's talk and let's see how we go. And later on, I'll be interviewing our sound engineer, as you know, which hopefully we'll get some decent stuff out of them.
Right.
These conversations, man. So Adam Kozier, Brad Sinclair, the two halves of the vulgar parts.
Yep.
Do you want to go first, man? What's how's this going to function? We haven't really spoken about it.
Yeah. So if I was to ask my first question about the album, I would ask what type of tone do you have in mind when it comes to recording an individual song? Do you have a guitar in mind? Do you have a specific guitar you say, yes, I want to use this on this song, or does it just come organically to you?
Well, basically, you can see what's hanging on the wall behind me, and there's a few more on the floor on stands. Quite a few more, actually. But no, it's a bit of a mixture, to tell you the truth, man. So a lot of guitarists and a lot of musicians will tell you nothing gets you moving on new ideas better than a new guitar. That actually happened partway through the vulgar parts. It's not one of the ones you can see. It's like a Gibson ES335 type thing from Japan in the 80s, like a copy. But that guitar is a good example. When I got it fixed up, the first thing I did was started hammering it, and immediately the riff for and Tamper with the Corpse, the main riff, just leapt out of the guitar. It was like I just happened to be in the room, you know. I just happened to be in the room holding this thing, and it played itself. You know, it was like, wow. For me, it just immediately functioned in a certain way. But for most of the project, I don't know. I had a little ethos, a little MO going into the project, and that was, I've spent too much money on musical instruments during my life. Let's make sure I use them all. So I deliberately use ones I don't use. The Telecaster up on the wall behind you. Not behind you, behind me. Yeah. The red one. So that's. I hope the knives weren't used too much on the album.
Always in the writing process, yeah.
Inspiration. So part of what you touched on when you asked the question was, do you have certain things in mind for certain songs? And I think the Telecaster, for sure, is the one I go to for the kind of melodic stuff, for the more melodic stuff. It's got a very, very specific tone that comes out of the neck pickup. The wood, the way that guitar sounds through that certain thing is used specifically for stuff during the album. But apart from that, it's to go to the third video question, or third example you said, which is the instinctual stuff. I keep my guitars on the walls. They're all in, I make music here and they're all around me. So when I get rolling, I don't even really think about it. It's kind of like, right. Okay, like, you know, next channel, next amp, next idea. And I'm pulling things off the walls faster than I can think of. I think the last part of the answer, and this is probably ended up being the most important part of the vulgar parts musically, and I think I'll talk to Chris Kilohertz about this later on, because I know he had a great hand in making this really, really come home strong, and that's the bass tone. So right, I'm going to grab this sucker. So this sucker here, it's a fretless bass, and the story of it is my nana died, right, and she gave us all a few $1,000 or whatever, and my son was either about to be born or had just been born at the time, And I took the money she gave me and I put half of it in an account for him to start his account. And the other half, I flew to Melbourne for business and went into a place called the Bass Place or the Bass Centre. And I told them, line up all your fretless basses between this price and this price. And I sat there for about 5 hours in an afternoon. And literally, like, guys were coming and going. I was having impromptu jams with customers, like just sitting there for hours. I told them straight up at the start, so I'm going to buy one of these basses, just let me do my thing. So they did, to their credit. You know, I was probably, if I was just kicking tires, right? If I was just some guy in there, they would have been pissed by the time I left. I bought this, and it's only an Ibanez, but dollar for dollar, it slaughtered some of the more expensive stuff in terms of tone. I was like, well, I haven't really used this instrument on anything, and I'm going to use it on this. So I really committed hard to like a really grindy fretless bass tone that obviously you know, and it's pretty idiosyncratic. You know, it sounds like something. It sounds like its own thing. I think we can talk about all the guitars and the way I use them, but the reality is this sucker provides so much of what became our sound. You know.
And I think that's the great dynamic between you and I, is that every instrument I own, I either got for free or got from a flea market, or it was like somebody built it and wanted to throw it away. So they just gave it to me. And like that's my writing process. I just pick it up and play whatever it is, not knowing that it doesn't sound like a guitar is supposed to sound, you know what I mean?
Though, like, you've got your acoustic guitar that you write everything on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of, when I was, I think 16, I was 17 or 18, there was this, you know, friend's girlfriend's dad who was this Dutch guy, and he had like these two guild acoustics that I got to play, and they were, fuck man, I shudder to think how much they cost. Like I was shaking trying to play them. I couldn't play anything. I was also shit at the time, so that helped with the not being able to play. But he was selling like a Korean-made Fender Newporter, and I bought it for a couple of $100. Like he sold it for nothing because he's just getting rid of it like it was trash. But I didn't know what I was getting. It was a pretty decent guitar. It's not high end or anything, but it's my acoustic guitar. And like, you know, when I've written my own stuff in the past, I write on that guitar. So I completely feel you in terms of ending up with an instrument that just becomes you, and you just spit out stuff on it. Is that your relationship with your acoustic guitar? Or?
Yeah, it really is. It's a Yamaha Dreadnought, and it is so warped you could shoot arrows with it. You know what I mean? Like if you get past the 5th fret on that thing, it's just completely out of tune all over the board.
It rarely sounds 100% in tune when you send your demos through, when we do that part of the writing, you know, when they come from your.
I don't go past the 5th fret on it.
So I mean, I'm a guitar. Am I a guitar nerd? I guess I am a guitar nerd in the sense that I have a whole bunch of them, spent too much money on them over my life, and I do have an understanding for sound and composition over individual playing techniques.
Yeah.
I've become very much about writing, which is what's great about the Vulgar parts, because I'm very, very much about writing songs. I don't really give a flying F about how great my technique sounds, or am I doing all these sorts of things, or am I a guitar player? I don't care. It's all about layering up stuff and making cool songs, which, you know, the relationship with you has given me the freedom to do, which is really, really cool. So I've got a question for you, man. So this project, so what's your earliest recollection of this project? What's your earliest recollection of the first thing you did for this project?
As far as songs go?
Just anything. Like,
So I do remember reaching out to you and saying, I want to do something like what you do. And and I was thinking, that sounds so fucking good. And then I was like, wait a minute, what if I incorporated what I do into what your sound is? And I was like, that could be something completely different than anyone's ever heard. You know what I mean? Like, ever. And it really turned out that way. Because I remember sending you the first couple things, And you're like, I know what to do with this. Because I pick up the guitar like it's like a hammer, like a physical instrument to build something with. I no theory behind it. And I remember when we started off, you were like, hey man, you got to write down the chords. I was like, I don't know what I just played. Like, I don't know what I just played there. So I would have to go back and like, okay, yeah. So this chord goes here, this chord goes here. It was super helpful after the fact. Once we got into, I think it was the third song, we finally got into it. And I started writing the chords down. And then it was like, yeah. And it was like, that was a process for me because historically I've never written anything down. And like, those were the songs for the Wire Riots. It was just like, here we go. Go into the studio, hit play, or I'm sorry, hit record, and that's the song. You know what I mean? And it was that kind of mentality that I've always had. It's like, all right, well, here's the song. Just do it as you think it.
You've gone straight where I wanted to go, and I had it's down the list of my, when I look to the side, I'm looking at my notes. It's down on my list. It's like you come from a very punk rock background in terms of the music you make, and you
right.
you're like, can I get it down, and move on, you know? So how's it been for you? I'm walking into a world of pain here. How's it been for you working with someone who's more detailed, more stop, repeat, get it perfect, work around things, change things? How did that feel for you, man? It must have been an up and down journey.
Yeah, it definitely took me out of the zone where it's like you're just you go into a holiday party and you shit out a fully decorated Christmas tree, and then maybe there's a train around the bottom going around. And now it was like, okay, wait, we have to redo a part. Oh shit. Now we have to redo it again and again. And it was like, and that like changed the electricity between my left and right hemisphere. And that was at a point where I was like, okay, I can sing this way in this part, or I can sing this way better in this part. And that's when we started doing the layering. And I never did that before. And I was like, that is kind of like a great thing that I never thought you could do to make something better. So
for me, it's kind of selfish for me because it's like taking my approach to guitars, which is in terms of composition, which is individual parts that are quite simple, but put them together to make something, and kind of like pushing you in that direction as well, you know?
It was definitely, you definitely like did a hand grab and would say, hey, just think about this. I'm going to take you here and just tell me what you can do to make this better. And it just sort of like was so more, it was so more dynamic, and everything came out so produced, so polished. And I never thought that was possible in a way, you know what I mean? And I think that's what makes this album so good and so dynamic.
No, it was absolutely awesome to see that. I mean, we had. Do you remember our 2 rules? I think it was 2 rules. Like one of them was the 2 rules were like anything goes and no drama.
You know? Yeah, right. No drama.
Anything goes, no drama. I was like, oh, the only thing I really care about here is, because we're onto a good thing. We're creating together. We've done the podcast and stuff together, and it was just, you've also got that thing where you're texting a lot, so you can misconstrue. You can, and when you're dealing with music, it's emotional, right? It's these ideas are personal to us,
Right.
And I think we kind of, I hate this language because it's just so I don't want to use the W word, but it's in that direction. Creating that, it's like a safe space, we created the space where it's like, we know there's no drama. Neither of us are going to drag it into a place where we're bickering over anything, and neither of us have preconceptions because anything goes. And those 2 rules were pretty strong, in helping us out.
They really did. Even though during the process of making this album, we both had on either side personal dramas that we did not bring into the music, and we were still able to create the album outside of those negative forces. You know what I mean?
There is one time where I was a bit of an asshole, actually, like bringing those negative forces in. Remember, I started composing the acoustic version of Lonely Rules, which is a B-side on the single that's about to come out.
Yeah.
And you had been through some shit,
Yeah.
or been through some stuff. I don't know what YouTube accepts. I don't know what filters make this video apart, but you were going through some stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, let's take this, probably the most emotional piece of music on the album. Let's make it more emotional and heavy, and let's like take you when you're like fractured and drop you straight into it. I apologize for that. Sorry, I guess sorry, not sorry, because you were able to dig that, man. You were able to like line into that, and you can hear it. You know, how did you feel about that? Because emotion in these kinds of songs, emotional stuff doesn't really seem to be one of your preferred modes of writing. Would you agree with that?
I would agree to that. Yeah, I would agree to that. Like, because I like to go hard, fast, here's the song, and then think about it later. Whereas what we did was, let's take it piece by piece and think about it as we go. And I think that's what makes the album different than any other album.
Nice. So those kind of those modes of writing that I kind of like touched on there. So I can see that you have several modes of writing, so several approaches. So an example of a mode of writing might be an emotional mode, where you write about something emotional and you bring that strong emotion out. Or maybe there's something that's really experiential. It's something you've lived, or maybe it's narrative, or, you know, there's a couple of modes within the album that kind of repeat several times. What do you feel me there? Do you follow what I'm trying to get at?
I do.
The way you write your lyrics and your vocal.
I mean, a lot of my stuff comes from things that aggravate me, yeah, like throughout the day. And then I hurry up and I write it all down and then put the music to it. Matter of fact, I was so aggravated at one point, we did a song in French.
and then we butchered the language. I managed to upload the title and t-shirts and everything with a misspelling of the French, which I've since, now this, you know, your French is bad when I've had 2 Canadian nationals say to me, you know, that's really bad. That's not right. You've put a T on the end of Purdue. And when you've got Canadians correcting your French, you know you really screwed it up, right?
I mean, you screwed it up, or fuck them if they can't take a joke.
Yeah, exactly. Which is, I guess, in terms of stereotypes, is very appropriate